My husband loves tater tots. He will eat them any place, anytime, toppings or no toppings. So I got to thinking, can I make them in the air fryer and get the shape and the texture right? Welcome to the Salted Pepper, where we cook for real life using real food and we keep it real simple. Today we are going to make air fryer tater tots. I kid you not. They look like tater tots, they taste like tater tots, because guess what? They are tater tots. They're just homemade. And it's super easy to do. It takes a little bit of time, but the steps are really simple. I'm gonna use my air fryer. I'm gonna use the Ninja Foodi 6.5 quart as my air fryer, but I'm also gonna use it to pressure cook the potatoes. That gets them partially cooked. That is an important step in this recipe. So if you don't have a pressure cooker to be able to do this step, you're gonna want to either microwave them for about 7 to 10 minutes or boil them on the stove until they just start to become fork tender. The idea is not to cook them all the way through, and we absolutely do not want them soft, but we want to soften them up some so they're par cooked so we can grate them easier and they form into the tater tot shape just a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm gonna pressure cook because it's fast and easy. 1 cup of water goes into the inner pot. I have the basket in, but the rack would work or the plate would work. So it really doesn't matter. You don't really want them sitting down in the bottom of the water though. That's gonna overcook them a little bit. So definitely elevate them above the water. And these are 1.5 pounds or 4, probably, I would say medium-sized russet potatoes. You do want russets in this recipe. The Yukon Golds are gonna be just a little bit too gummy for the texture that we want, okay? So russets, all russets is my recommendation. And we're gonna pressure cook for 5 minutes. How you set up your pressure cooker depends on the model. This one, we turn the slider or slide the slider over to the far left, and we will turn the Ninja Foodi on. It defaults to high pressure. That's what we want. We only need 5 minutes though. And then we can hit start. Now make sure your valve in the back is to the sealed position no matter what type of pressure cooker you have. So if you have the 2-lid model in Ninja Foodi and you put your pressure lid on, just make sure it is sealed or you won't go under pressure. You'll just evaporate all your water out as steam. After 5 minutes is up, we will do an immediate release and then get them right in the fridge to chill. All right, when all the steam is released, and this one prompts you that you can open the lid, need to move the slider this way and open it up. It's gonna be super, super steamy. And then grab the basket out. And what I do is let this cool just for about 5 minutes and then pop it into the refrigerator just like this, in the basket. You could also transfer it to some sort of a bowl, but you want to leave it uncovered because we want it to chill quickly. The faster it chills, the faster you can make your tater tots. Usually it's going to take about an hour or so, or you can leave it overnight. That's perfectly fine too. I often do that. So the potatoes have been in the refrigerator about 2 hours. They're still slightly warm, but it's fine. They're gonna be chilled enough, okay? They don't have to be completely cold. Now I peel them. And you could peel them before you pressure cook them, but it's honestly easier to get the peel off afterwards, in my opinion. So now I just peel the skin off, which it just sort of comes right off. All right, now we are gonna use a box grater and we're gonna grate all of these potatoes up. And you wanna use the large grating holes, or you could use a food processor if it has a grating blade, that's fine. Or any other way that you like to grate is perfectly fine, but I find the box grater to be pretty easy. And then just run your potatoes down and you're gonna get these nice grated strands of par-cooked potatoes. Just like that. I'm gonna repeat this for all of them and place them into medium-sized mixing bowl. All right, there we go. Now we are gonna grate an onion. And this is a very small onion. It's a sweet onion, but you could use a yellow onion or a white onion, or you can omit the onion and add an onion powder. It's perfectly fine. But I like to grate the onion in here. And you want about 2 tablespoons grated, but you have to squeeze the liquid out, okay? So I cut off both ends of a small onion. If you have a large onion, you're only gonna use half of it. Peel it. And then use the small side of the box grater, or you could use a zester. We want this super finely grated. All right, so when you get down to like where you have a little strip here and it gets hard to grate and you don't want to grate your fingers, just put it into your scrap pile. You can use that in vegetable stock. So you can throw those into the freezer for homemade vegetable stock. And that's it. That's all you get from half of an onion. Isn't that crazy? So now I'll get a little bowl over here. You could use a paper towel to do this, but I usually just do it with my hands. Just sort of squeeze the liquid out. And you're gonna see, I'm gonna end up with just about a tablespoon. It's crazy. All right, there we go, that looks good. So just kind of sprinkle that around into your potato mixture. We'll get it mixed in really well after I get the other half in there. Now it's time to add in our seasonings. Now you can switch this up so many different ways, but what I do is I put in 1.5 teaspoons of fine grind sea salt or kosher salt and 1/2 teaspoon of garlic powder and 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. I find the cornstarch is very important in this recipe. It helps hold everything together and absorbs the moisture that's left in the potatoes and the onion, so we get a really crispy but tender tater tot. All right, so I have those in this bowl and I'm just gonna kind of shake it around a little bit and sprinkle it over the top. You're gonna see mostly the cornstarch, but the rest of it's in there, I promise. Now, other things you could do if you wanted like to have a spicy tater tot is add in some cayenne pepper or add in chipotle if you wanted them a little smoky. So that's why I like making my own. You can really mix this up any which way you want. Just add different spices in until you find the blend that's perfect for you. Then mix them. You can mix this with your hands or you can use a spoon. I find it easiest to use my hands because I can gently go through, break up the little slivers of potatoes that are grated, and get everything really mixed in pretty well. You also will start to feel it kind of get a little gummy. That's what we want, okay? So that's normal. That's the cornstarch combining with everything else. Once you no longer see cornstarch in your mixture, you're ready to roll your tater tots. And I do this by hand. Jeff just asked me, don't you make a big roll and cut them into slices? And I'm like, gosh, did I try that? I don't remember if I tried that, but if I did try it, it didn't work because that's not how I'm doing it. I'm making each one by hand, which I know seems a little tedious, but really once you get the hang of it, it just takes about a second a piece. So 5 seconds a piece. You need 1 tablespoon, either a measuring spoon, a regular, eating spoon that's about a tablespoon, or a scoop. Either way. Usually I use my Pampered Chef scoop that's a tablespoon. I can't find it, so, we're going to go with this. I do like using something that's metal because I like to take it around the edge of the bowl and sort of slice it off, okay? So that we don't have long strands. And then just put it into your hands. You might have to pull it out because it's a little gummy. Now, to form the perfect tater tot, squeeze it in the palm of your hand. Take your thumb and middle finger, or thumb and forefinger, whichever is more comfortable. Press down as you make the cylinder. And that's it. Your tater tot is formed. And they look perfect. All right, so I'm gonna get busy doing the rest of these. All right, so I was able to get about 32 tater tots, which is about average. It's 4 cups of shredded potatoes, 1.5 pounds, like I said earlier, and that makes about 32. Anywhere between 30, 34, depending on how big you make them. You can make them a little smaller, but your cook time will be less. If you make them bigger, then you're gonna wanna decrease your temperature a little bit and cook a little bit longer. All right, let's get our air fryer preheated. Now, the way that you're gonna set up your air fryer depends on what type of air fryer you have. I'm using the Ninja Foodi 6.5 quart, and I'm using the basket as my insert. You can use the crisping tray if your model comes with that. If you're using a drawer style, you're just gonna have put your little rack in there and heat it up with whatever cooking surface you're gonna cook the tater tots on inside the air fryer. That's very important. You want them to go onto a hot surface right away so they start to crisp up. So what I like to do is preheat on the hottest setting, which on the Ninja Foodie is technically broil or grill, but lately I've just been using air fry at 400 and that's been working out fine. So we're gonna go to air fry, which it defaults to here, and then take your temperature up to 400. Now, if your air fryer goes up to 450, preheat on 450 because the hotter the surface is, the quicker we're gonna start to get the crisping action going. And then hit start. I have 20 minutes on the clock, but really we only need to preheat for about 10 minutes. Meanwhile, let's get the tater tots coated with a little bit of cornstarch and a little bit of oil. Yes, that's kind of important. Can you throw them in right now and just spritz them a little bit with oil? You can, but they're not gonna have the same outside crunch and texture as a frozen tater tot. So the goal with this recipe was to get them as close to a deep fried tater tot, whether you get them at a restaurant or you buy them at the store and you heat them up in your oven. And believe it or not, the frozen ones that you get from the store are treated with oil before you put them in the oven, okay? That's why they're so delicious. All right, so take your tater tots. I recommend adding all of the tater tots to the bag and coating them all at once, even if you're not gonna cook them all, because you might as well get this part done and coated with oil because you can freeze them that way, and then you can pull them out of the freezer and you can air fry them from frozen, and they work out amazingly well. So we're gonna throw these in the bag and then we're gonna sprinkle over the cornstarch and get them lightly coated. I have 2 tablespoons of cornstarch, but I may not use it all, okay? Okay, now we wanna be gentle with this because we don't want them to break up. So add about maybe 1 tablespoon in to your bag. And just gently rock them around. It is a little normal for some to get a little bit more of the cornstarch on there than others, but I just try to do the best I can. All right, that's all I need. So 1 tablespoon is plenty. All right, now they're gonna go back on our tray. And now they get a little hit of oil. The type of oil that you use is up to you. I like to use a neutral oil, so either a canola or an avocado oil is my preference, but whatever you want to use is perfectly fine. And then just start to spritz them. The goal is to not see any of the cornstarch, but I give a light spritz over all of them. And that, my friends, is probably less than a tablespoon of oil. And then roll them around on the parchment. And you can spritz again where you see some heavier areas of cornstarch. And I just take my hands and roll them in the leftover oil, okay? And get them finished up. Now they are ready to either be frozen or air fried. If you want to freeze them for use later, I recommend freezing them directly on the parchment paper. You might need just a little bit more oil. I'm still seeing quite a bit of cornstarch on some of these. Now you don't have to spritz the basket, and you don't really even have to spritz them during cooking at this point because they are lightly coated with oil. But you can if you want. If they're not crisping up the way you like them, give it another couple spritz. All right, so I'm gonna make up 1 batch, which is probably gonna be about 12 or so. And then the rest of them I'm gonna freeze, and I'll freeze them right on this paper individually, and then I will put them into a sealed freezer bag. And then anytime I want some tater tots, I just grab them out and I air fry them from frozen. The only change is that I drop the temperature to 375 and I air fry for about 12 minutes or so. All right, they look great. I have some tater tots that I made. They're not as pretty. I didn't take as much time forming them as I did these, but they're gonna be delicious. So these have been in the freezer for about 5 hours and they are perfectly fine. They're frozen. I'm gonna use the same bag that I coated the other ones in. No problems with that at all. And we're gonna pop them right in this bag. And then once those are frozen, the ones that I don't bake up, I'll add them to this bag. And then I'll have tater tots in my freezer that were homemade. Get as much air out as you can, and then go ahead and pop them back in the freezer. Now my freezer has a space that this works perfectly, so I'm gonna go ahead and add these to this tray and pop them in the freezer. 10 minutes of preheat is finished. Like I said, you don't have to spritz the basket. Just go ahead and throw the tater tots in. Keep them kind of so they're separated a little bit. I'm only making 10. You could probably make 16 or so, maybe even 20 at a time. Of course, it depends on the size of your air fryer, how many you can fit in one batch. Some you can fit a lot more, some you can fit less. All right, there we go. Close the lid. We're gonna air fry on 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 10 minutes. I will check them at about 6-minute mark. I don't like to disturb anything for a full 6 minutes. And this is true if you're making tater tots from frozen that you bought at the store. If you wanna air fry them, it works great, but don't try to move them around because they will stick and they will start to fall apart. Ask me how I know. I know because my husband loves tater tots and I've made them a million times in the air fryer and I have ruined several batches by being impatient and moving them around. So let them sit in the air fryer, whether they're homemade or frozen from the store, for at least 6 minutes on 400 degrees Fahrenheit, then start to kind of move them around so that they get even browning. If you meet resistance, like they're stuck to the bottom, don't force them, just let them cook a little bit longer. It's been 6 minutes, so let's go ahead and see if they're ready to give a little flip. And it looks like they are. So you can see how the one side is browning a little bit more than the top. That is normal when I use the basket of this air fryer. What's touching the basket seems to brown a little bit more. But no worries, they will completely brown up and be beautiful by the time we're done. All done. They look so good. Now keep in mind, all air fryers work a little differently, so you may need to increase your time a little bit. But these, oh my gosh, they look perfect. Look at that. Homemade tater tots. Now ordinarily I would let them cool on a cooling rack so that they don't steam on the bottoms, but I'm just gonna keep these on the plate, let them cool down for about 3 to 5 minutes, then I'll give them a taste. All right, so I could definitely taste these, and I will. Let's see. First of all, they are crunchy. Oh my goodness. Wow. They are so good. But I'm not the connoisseur of tater tots. Mr. Jeff, come on in. All right, whichever one you want.
I'll try this one right here.
All right. First of all, crunch test.
Passes the crunch test.
All right. They're
Flavor
not.
test. They taste better than store-bought.
Yay! They're not as greasy. They're not as greasy as deep fried tater tots, that's for sure.
The only thing they need, cheese, bacon.
Bacon, you're
and sour
loaded.
cream.
You're loaded ones. That's right. That's right. All right, so when you have some extra time, grab some potatoes and make your own tater tots.